Buckle in, sports fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show. The program will be starting in just a couple of minutes, so grab your popcorn and get ready to enjoy the show. While you're waiting, make sure you're following us on social media at WHBC Stream and staying tuned to WHBCStream.com. We're so glad to have you today on the program, and we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line on Twitter or call the show 352-639-0036. And thanks again for tuning in.
HBC. Well, it is a good evening to you, and how you be? William Haynes here, you there, here on this Wednesday night at 7:25 here on the William Haynes Show. Of course, as always, live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. The Rays advanced to the ALDS after an 8-2 win today over the Toronto Blue Jays that finished a 2-game sweep in the best of 3. An interesting thing this year with the 3-game wildcard set. We were a little bit worried about how the Rays would match up against the Blue Jays, but of course the Rays put all that to bed after a nail-biting Game 1 where they won 3-1. They come out and strike against the Blue Jays ace Hyunjin Ryu, knock him up for 7 total runs, only 3 of them earned. There was a couple of errors, but they end up scoring 8 runs total on the day. And again, knocking out Hyunjin Ryu out in basically the first inning, I think, was the biggest story of that. But we'll tell you all about that later. We're also keeping our eyes on getting underway in about 20 minutes or so at 7:50. It'll be Game 2 between the Yankees and Indians. Of course, the significance of that is the Rays will play the winner of that series in a best-of-5 in San Diego. That series won't get underway until Monday, so the Rays will have the rest of the time off. And it looks like the Yankees-Indians could get finished tonight, or maybe it carries over to tomorrow. Certainly something to keep our eyes on. I think we'd all rather see Cleveland, especially because of how Shane Bieber looked at his little cameo there in playoff baseball. And although we went 8-2 against the Yankees this year, I think New York proved to Baseball America last night that they're coming to play. The big boys, Judge, Stanton, Voit, Sanchez didn't play, but they've got Torres and all those guys, from all that. But mainly Rays show tonight, but we'll keep our eye on the other game. But the number to call, if you want to talk Rays, you want to talk strategy and maybe how they line up next series, how you liked how they did stuff this series, it is 877-566-1020 at WHBC Stream is the Twitter. Not quite sure how long we'll go tonight, kind of see how things go. For the Rays, again, they sweep the 3-game set, 2-0. It was Tyler Glasnow getting the win in 6 innings of 2-run ball, as we were kind of expecting, and then Hyunjin Ryu taking the loss. He can't even get through 2 innings, gives up only 3 earned runs, 7 total unearned. For the Rays, it was 8 runs on 12 hits, no errors, and for the Jays, 2 runs on 7 hits and 2 errors, both by the shortstop Bo Bichette, and both led to some pretty big runs there, no doubt. And then after the 6 innings from Glasnow, it was 2 outs from Loop. Then Ryan Thompson gets an inning and a third in his Major League postseason debut, and he looked pretty good doing that, setting himself up, I think, in a pretty significant role, a tricky right sidewinder type. And then Nick Anderson, very, very surprising, finishes the final inning, and back to the Nick Anderson of past that we know, gets 3 outs using just 6 pitches after throwing 29 last night. We had expected on this show that 29 pitches in game 1 probably took him out for games 2 and 3. I guess word from Kevin Cash before the game that he was ready to go. And he was warming up multiple times in the bullpen down the right field line throughout the game, and that had me scratching my head a little bit. But I think ultimately it makes sense. You want to make sure that this series doesn't get to a game 3. So you gotta throw Toronto all that you've got to make sure that this series is closed out today. And so he finishes out the 9th inning. But also, I think with the ALDS, that's going to be 5 games in 5 days, and if they're lucky enough to advance to the American League Championship Series, that's going to be 7 games in 7 days because, no travel days, so they didn't want to do the typical off days that you would get during a normal postseason. So, Nick Anderson is going to be pitching a lot of back-to-backs, and I think showing his guts. I'm not quite sure how many pitches he could have gone. I think when he was warming up earlier in the game, I think to come in after Aaron looped, so the Ryan Thompson spot, that would have been in the 6th to get the 3rd out of the 7th inning, rather. So maybe, he wasn't, Kevin Cash wouldn't have let him throw 10 pitches, but that's where things get a little hairy because of the 3-batter minimum. So I think good on Nick Anderson for getting 3 outs using just 6 pitches. So that was all fine and good to see. Also of note for the pitchers, really just Tyler Glasnow faces 25 men, throws a first pitch strike to 19 of them, so that's very good efficiency. Gets through 6 innings using just 86 pitches. 55 were for strikes, which I think is fine. It's actually not a bad stat, and again, the first pitch strikes was huge. We know with him establishing the fastball, he gave up 6 hits, and a lot of that was just fastballs that, Tyler Glasnow likes to throw the fastballs up and get guys to climb the ladder. They didn't quite find the spot as well as he probably would have liked, as I'd imagine that we'll find out maybe in his little post-game spot after they're done celebrating and whatnot. So that was really the only thing of concern for him. Gives up 2 earned runs, walks only 1, strikes out 8, and then the 2 homers, both to the catcher, Danny Jansen, and we'll take a look when we go inning by inning, but they both just seemed kind of similar at bats, just got away from Glasnow a little bit, but was rather shut down again after that. And then, as I said, 2 outs from Loop, an inning and a third from Thompson, and the final 9th inning from Nick Anderson using only 6 pitches. And for the lineup, it was kind of as we expected last night. We expected that Ji-Man Choi and Yandy Diaz would be performing in some role, and Yandy Diaz we expected to be in the starting lineup because of the righty-lefty advantage for sure, and Diaz hasn't played in, I think, at this point, about a month or so. And he starts in the cleanup spot and plays third base, which I was a little bit confused about. Well, not necessarily confused is the right word, but I had expected if Brasso and Diaz, both the righties, the corner infielders, I would imagine it would have been Diaz at first and Brasso at third, but they mix it up and that's fine. Brasso leads off. Yandy Diaz cleans up. Yandy, I think, works some good at-bats. He goes 0 for 2, but works 2 walks. There was a strikeout in the first at-bat that we'll talk about that I think left Yandy Diaz no choice but to kind of chase a pitch well outside the zone. And you catch a tough break there. And then speaking of Mike Brasso, he leads off, goes 2 for 3. Started the game off with a single that he tried to stretch into a double. I didn't love that, and he got thrown out. But I guess you like his kind of aggressive mentality. He's just one of those dudes. So I think ultimately had a good spot in the leadoff spot. And again, with the lefty, Hyunjin Ryu, they go heavy righties. They go 7 righties and 2 lefties in the starting order. It was Brasso to lead off, followed by Arozarena and Lau. Diaz cleaned up, followed by Margot and Renfroe in a bottom 3 of Adames, Kiermaier, and Zanino. I guess just kind of going over stuff here, and we'll touch on it again after we go inning by inning. Randy Arozarena, the DH. Let me give you the defensive alignment first. I know I'm a bit all over the place. In the outfield from left to right, it was Manny Margot in left, Kevin Kiermaier in center, Hunter Renfroe in right, and in the infield from third to first, it was Yandy Diaz at third Willie Adames at short, Lau at second, Mike Brasso at first. Mike Zunino did the catching, obviously, for the starter, Tyler Glasnow, and it was Randy Arozarena, the DH. I was a bit surprised to see Arozarena bat second. I mean, that's kind of a ticky-tack thing, who bats second or third. I'd imagine that Brandon Lau was just going to be the everyday number 2 guy in the order, save for maybe a day somewhere in a potential ALCS where 7 games in 7 days. Just to let you know, the World Series will have off days because I guess the TV and whatnot, they want to make it, I guess, maybe the best series possible. Who knows? And just while I have that on the subject as well, I just wanted to throw this out there that during the game, I guess baseball gave notice that for both the National League Championship Series and the World Series, both of those taking place in the Texas Rangers' new ballpark in Arlington, Texas, they will have about 11,500 fans available. So the first real chance to go to a major league game. I think not to get too deep into this, I saw some people maybe questioning why don't they do that for the American League Championship Series. Well, I think the easy answer for that is just the state of California. Their COVID restrictions are a lot more strict, and I'm not quite sure about the city of San Diego, which is where the ALCS is, but there's really no conceivable way they can get fans in there. Texas has taken a little bit different route, and I'm sure Major League Baseball worked to kind of maneuver through that with them, and I think baseball knew that there's nothing that you can do about the playoffs being weird with no fans, but I think it's important for them if they could finagle it, which they ended up doing, to have at least some fans at the World Series. I think that's more important than the NLCS. And so I guess it's open for whoever wants to buy them. I think 10,000 or so is in the seating bowl, and they're going to have like 1,000 or whatever suites, which obviously is probably the more important thing to baseball to get the money. But it'll be nice just to see fans in the stands and whatnot. So just to give you that notice. But back to the Rays with Arozarena and Lau batting second and third. Lau bats third today, and that leaves Arozarena, the DH, in the second spot. So I don't know, a bit weird to see him not in the field, first of all. I expected if Margot was going to be in the game, it was probably going to be at center, but I think Kevin Cash makes the right move. Righty, lefty, no matter. I think your Gold Glover, Kiermaier, needs to be in center as much as you can possibly put him there, but they end up going with the outfield of Margot, Kiermaier, and Renfroe, and that leaves Arozarena. You got to have his bat in the order, so you use the designated hitter on him. He goes 3 for 4 with a walk. He reached base the first 4 times he came to the plate, scored 2 runs, and didn't strike out at all. So another really, really good day. I think if they were to award, I guess, an American League Wildcard Series MVP, it would have to go to Randy Arozarena. Because of what he did in the outfield. He saved a double, ended up catching it for an out in game 1, and then we know as well from the leadoff triple, I think in the 5th inning, where he ended up coming across to score to make it 1-0, and then the big game that he had here today. So really good sign for Arozarena. I think as long as he stays a member of the Rays, he's going to be a big part of this team. We had talked about it. A lot of people close to the organization had been talking about him as a potential wild card, no pun intended, to kind of the whole Rays scheme in 2020. Kind of people that would know compared him to a Carl Crawford type, and he's a guy, I said that, really kind of a first reaction, he's got all 5 of the tools. Defensively, he can field, he can throw, and then of course he's got speed, not just in the outfield but also in the base path, and he can hit not just for average but also for power, which we've seen. So you put all 5 of those together. We've had a caller on here that has compared him to Mookie Betts, and I can't deny that comparison. He's certainly got that kind of stuff. So as we look forward to the ALDS, 2 really good pitching staffs on whether it's the Cleveland Indians or the New York Yankees, it's going to be tough sledding, and I think Arozarena, to be completely honest, really, I think is a 1-for-1 swap with Austin Meadows. I mean, I'm going to say it. You changed out the lefty for the righty, but I think, they're both similar players. They're both pretty good defensively in the corners, and I think right now, at least, the youngster Arozarena is giving you some more pop on offense. So maybe not the worst thing in the world, and maybe save yourself of that difficult position, because who knows maybe where Arozarena would have been if Austin Meadows was healthy. So I think maybe making the best of making good of such a not great situation. So he reaches base 4 times, which is huge. Lau picks up another hit, goes 1 for 4 after getting a hit yesterday. So he gets a couple. Yandy Diaz, as we mentioned in the cleanup spot, 0 for 2, but does work a couple of walks, which really has been the Yandy Diaz experience this year. He's got the power. The biceps are bigger than ever, but just really hasn't been able to do much with the bat. But he sees more pitches per at-bat than just about anybody that the Rays have, and he's so great at working the walk. I think he's always been good at seeing the baseball, but I think this year he's kind of transitioned his game into a guy that's just going to really make you give him the perfect pitch, and hopefully he'll see that. I think, as far as I can recall, maybe only had a home run or 2 over the course of the regular season, albeit in limited action. And then we move further down the lineup and to the middle part. Margot went 1 for 4, knocked in a run, struck out once. Hunter Renfroe 1 for 4, but boy, did he make it count with the grand slam. I mentioned on yesterday's show, and I guess kind of how ironic that it worked out that way. I said, with the new age of baseball, the 3 true outcomes, I think Renfroe has made a whole new meaning of it. I've mentioned that with Hunter Renfroe, it's the 2 true outcomes. It's either going to be a strikeout looking or home run, and I think we do, if I'm not mistaken, do we see he struck out twice, but he went down swinging, and then the home run, and then in the first inning he reached base via an error. So proving me a bit right in that regard, and I think he was a huge part of the Rays win as well. And man, could you imagine fans in the stands for that grand slam? It would have been just like the Kiermaier home run in Game 3 against Houston last year. I could have just imagined how nuts everybody would have gone. So Hunter Renfroe, I had a chat with somebody today about maybe Renfroe's future with the team as a first baseman. Really, without going too far into it, Renfroe, basically the story on him, he's got to be an everyday player, a big guy like that, a big frame. He's very powerful, obviously, the strong arms and all of that. He's got to be an everyday player because when you have a swing that's that powerful, you have to be able to kind of hone it in and kind of work on it, and you need to be taking everyday at-bats, and just the way the Rays operate with the versatility, they don't really have a spot for someone like that when they're in a slump to just play every day, because they've got 5 or 6 different players that can take his spot if Renfroe is going through something he needs to work through. So Kevin Cash, instead of leaving him in to rot, so to speak, has kind of just sat him down on the bench, and I'm not sure exactly about the splits, but he's pretty much just started against left-handed starters. So gets that opportunity today, obviously makes it count, and that's great to see. With the future of this team, I don't think he obviously doesn't have a place in the outfield. Even if Kiermaier goes, I think Brett Phillips will take his place probably in center. Margot is going to be a part of this team for quite some time, obviously. We know with Randy Arozarena. And so depending on what the Rays decide to do with G-Man Choi, it may be that choice. I think Choi is better defensively, at least right now, but maybe they like the upside of Renfroe a little bit better. I think really in a 162-game season, if Hunter Renfroe starts every day, we're actually going to take a call right now. And we've got Seth in Los Angeles. Seth, congratulations to us all for the Rays advancing to the ALDS. How are you?
Hey, I said I'd call in if they won. Yeah, I'm feeling great. I mean, my dad's probably not feeling so great. I guess we're gonna find out when he gets home.
Oh man!
But like, I did not really see this coming. I mean, I think I said yesterday that there was like the faintest of possibilities that Ryu just gets shelled, and I mean, that would be an understatement. They shelled him like Dresden. Like this was not what I expected. I mean, who had Hunter Renfroe Grand Slam on their 2020 bingo card? Because whoever it was, I really want to see your lotto numbers. Like that's just crazy. That was his first postseason appearance and his first postseason hit. I mean, technically, he appeared yesterday as a pinch hitter, but it was his first postseason start, and his first postseason hit was a grand slam off of Hyunjin Ryu. I mean, you can't make this up. Like, I don't know if there's a human being on this earth that expected that to happen.
Well, as a Dodger fan, you know that Hunter Renfroe's claim to fame is the grand slam, that one in Petco Park against Kelly Jansen to walk it off against the Dodgers.
Well, to be fair, I blotted that out of my memory a long time ago. Like, I just forgot that happened. Well, no, I didn't forget. And the thing is, like, I didn't expect that to be off of Ryu. Like, I mean, sure, if it was Kenley Jansen, like, if it was Kenley Jansen pitching, then yeah, I mean, Kenley should be quaking in his boots if he ever sees Hunter Renfroe again. But in the majority of the times that Renfroe has faced Ryu, he hasn't been all that impressive. I mean, he's been, like, good, but I think he's been decent, but he hasn't been like that, which is crazy. Like I said, just didn't see it coming. I know his claim to fame is a Grand Slam, and now his new claim to fame is a Grand Slam in the postseason in his first ever start, which is wild. Just wild.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the heroes of the game for sure. I was running through the Indians roster because the Rays will either play the Yankees or Indians. Kevin Cash has really only started him against left-handed starters. I don't see any lefty starters for Cleveland. Obviously, we know with the Yankees, he'll start against Masahiro Tanaka, and I don't really see anyone outside of that. Jordan Montgomery as well, a possibility. So I'm not quite sure how much we're going to see him. He's not a great pinch hitter. He needs those kind of consistent at bats. So we may not get to see much more of him. But I think, that was a very cool sight to see him put that in this, put one in the seats with the bases juiced.
Yeah, he definitely made his presence felt. Especially if we're not going to see him again. And you know what? In all honesty, as sad as this is to say, he may never be seen in another Rays postseason after this, if what I believe is true, which is that they're probably going to send him to another team who they think they can get a good return from, that will start him consistently. It probably won't even be a division rival or a league rival. I think they will send him back to the National League. In all honesty, they'll find a National League team that is in position to meet a guy with a power bat like that, and they'll probably send him there. I don't really see him staying with the Rays unless he pulls off more postseason heroics and just like heats up like crazy and becomes a fan favorite, and then maybe. But when has being a fan favorite ever stopped the Rays from trading somebody before?
Absolutely. Well,
that
how do you feel about them moving him to first base? Because I had mentioned that before you called in, that there's no room for Renfroe in the outfield with the guys that they have now, but they gave him a start at the end at first base. If they work him there in the offseason, I don't know. How would you feel about it?
Well, my biggest issue with Renfroe at first base, you got to be able to stretch. And he hasn't shown me that yet. In his one start at first base, he didn't show me any leg ability. He actually didn't run out a ground ball. He tossed a ground ball to, I can't remember which pitcher it was, mine Yarbrough. He got it and then didn't even run it out. He just like tossed it to him. I guess if they work him consistently in the offseason, if they say, no, we're not going to trade him, we're not going to sell high, we're going to work him consistently in the offseason, we're going to try and get him to the point where he could be a first baseman or even a third baseman, I might say keep him at that point if they think that they can pull that off. But my biggest problem with that is we have people like Mike Brasso can start at first base as a righty and is more consistent than Renfroe will ever be. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough call. It really, Renfroe just doesn't do well in this lineup, in this concept that the Rays have been running for the last few years, which is basically the constant platoon. There is never a guy who's an everyday starter unless he is the best guy on the team, like Brandon Lau or Austin Meadows. There's not really going to be a guy who's an everyday starter because of their constant platoon theory. Even Kevin Kiermaier, who is probably the best defensive center fielder in the major leagues and who is legitimately very, 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 very clutch, is not an everyday starter a lot of the time, especially this year. I mean, we've been seeing Manuel Margot get reps in center field over him. We've been seeing, I think even briefly, Randy Arozarena was started in center field over him. I mean, there have been instances in which this guy, who's a fan favorite and who's an incredible defensive outfielder and who is a decent hitter most of the time, has been relegated due to the fact that they want the best matchup options, and that is the philosophy of the Rays. Hunter Renfroe does not match up well with that philosophy. In the seasons where he is healthy, he's put up consistent numbers. Like when he's healthy, he's put up consistent numbers when he's getting consistent reps. And on the Rays, he just won't do that. So I think and I like Hunter. I actually think he's a really cool dude. But when you want him to be successful, I think that may not be on the Rays, period, because I just don't know, even if he is the righty first base option, I don't know how consistent his reps are even going to be in that position. So it might be more logical for the Rays to attempt to sell high on him as of right now, like because originally we were thinking, I think we talked about this before, we were thinking that he was going to sell really low in the offseason if he got traded because he was playing so horribly this year. But now that he's done some postseason heroics, and if he somehow manages to do some more, I think the Rays are thinking, well, we can sell high now. We can find a team that's desperate and who wants a power hitting outfielder or even a DH, because now there's going to be the expanded DH option. If there's a team that doesn't have an everyday DH right now, Renfroe might even be a good position for that. I think the Rays might think to themselves, well, let's see how good of a deal we can get. You know, if somebody offers us a ridiculous haul, like okay, we're going to give you two decent tier prospects, like two like double-A guys or two double-A guys and a single-A guy or something like that, or hell, even a triple-A guy and a couple of double-A guys. I mean, the Rays are not going to say no to that. They're going to give up Renfroe if they're offered a good enough deal, and I think realistically moving him would probably be best for both the team and for him, so he can have consistent reps.
Yeah, I agree with you, and you made the good point. I think that completely changes it for Eric Neander if now all of a sudden, after maybe a couple of good games here in October, he can sell high and get some back, because who knows how that trade will end up going down with Pham. I mean, I was watching him swipe at base today for San Diego, but yeah, I mean, you can get some value out of him. That's not bad, because I think G-Man Choi, I think his future comes into play with that as well, because obviously we'd rather have him as the everyday first baseman because of what he does defensively, and then in that case Renfroe would be out. So yeah, and then with the outfield, I think you're right, yeah, and it would serve Renfroe better as well to get everyday playing time elsewhere.
We also tried the right-handed first baseman scenario with Jose Martinez, and look how that turned out. It didn't go well. You know, he's not good defensively. He's not good in the box most of the year for us. He wasn't working on this team structure. I also think that with him it was a serious NL hangover. He really was not good in the AL, and then he gets sent right back to the NL. I feel like that was probably part of it as well. So in all honesty, I think Renfroe's not long for this team. Much as I hate to say it. I mean, is he AL wildcard MVP? I mean, we talked about how Manuel Margot or Blake Snell or any of those guys might be that yesterday, but maybe he is now. That's kind of first Grand Slam in Rays postseason history, sealing the win. All of that is pretty stellar stuff. So I mean, he did a great job tonight. My congratulations to him. Certainly, I think he was fantastic. But I don't know if he's long for this team, and I think he probably even himself understands that. I got to think Hunter Renfroe's thinking to himself, why am I really here? like I'm good and they're good, but do we really need each other? Like could I go to another team and get more consistent reps, and could they get more consistency out of their current outfield platoon without me? So I wonder if even a mutual parting of the ways might be in the works, where Hunter just kind of said, you know what, if you guys want to trade me, more power to you. Let's find a team that'll suit me better.
Absolutely, yeah. I would imagine that would be most likely. Hopefully he does, maybe a little bit more. We'd love to see some more success in the postseason. But yeah, certainly it feels good to be a Tampa Bay fan. I was very relieved to see how they kind of disposed of the Blue Jays. I was a little bit worried about if it had gone to a Game 3, what would have went down there. But the Rays don't leave that up to the imagination. They decided in just 2.
Yeah, they don't leave it up to chance. This was not the kind of thing you want to leave up to chance. I was also concerned about this series going to 3 games because realistically, the Blue Jays have no third starter. Taijuan Walker is a stopgap option at best, so their third starter not very good. However, our third starter has not been very consistent. So in a 3-game series where that's the elimination game, you don't want a guy who is inconsistent and has not been working well. In the ALDS, let's say we're playing the ALDS against the Yankees and Snell and Glasnow shove like they did today and just absolutely crush them, and then we send Morton out for the 3rd game and it's kind of a gamble. In that case, you can gamble because in that case it's not an elimination game. and you can gamble. You can say to yourself, okay, fine. If we lose this game, we come back with Yarbrough tomorrow, and we'll have a better shot with that. And if we have to, we'll come back with Yarbrough behind an opener. We'll come back with whatever we got to do to beat them tomorrow. That's the kind of theory that I think works in that series, works in a DS, works in a CS, works in the World Series, doesn't work in this case. So that was something I was pretty concerned about going in, is that Morton is basically a gamble. It's a coin flip. It's like you're either going to get healthy, good Morton, whose velocity is up and he's kicking butt, or you're going to get inconsistent Morton, who is like all right, but is giving up a bare minimum of 3 to 4 runs, and you're having to scramble to get those runs back. And I'm fine with that in Game 3 of the ALDS, where we're already up 2-0. I'm not fine with that in an AL wildcard where it's an elimination game. So, personally, I am ecstatic that it ended up turning out this way, and I'm sure Charlie is too, because he didn't want to have to be put out in an elimination game and just basically left out there to die. And if he does well, then great. If he does poorly, then that's your season. That's not a scenario he wants, I'm sure.
And probably his career, too. I don't imagine, with the state of his arm right now, I don't think he would attempt to come back for a 2021 season. So, he doesn't want to go off on that note either. I guess just one more thing. I'm interested to see, and it'll depend on the matchups, where the Rays will, if they look to shake up this roster at all. A move that I was a little bit curious of, and it didn't end up coming into play. They swap out the lefty Ryan Sheriff for another lefty in Shane McClanahan, who has yet to make a major league appearance. I would wonder if they swapped that back out, if maybe they just wanted to get him a look if the chance presented itself and it didn't. I'd wonder maybe if they try and put in another arm and take out a position player, perhaps with the matchups, like maybe Hunter Renfroe would come out if they end up facing Cleveland because of the no left-handed starters. I mean, is there anything off the top of your head about the roster that maybe you would change, or would you just leave it the same?
DS, I think you got to put Fleming back in. I heard that he's not on the roster for the WCS. You got to have him back in the DS because you might need him because there's no breaks. So unless you want to start Blake Snell on short rest as your fifth starter, or you want to start, well, I don't even know. I don't know what you would do. I think you got to have Fleming back on the roster just for long relief. So that may sacrifice a position player. And yes, I do think McClanahan is gone. He won't be on this roster most likely because you're now in the DS. You're in a more serious series. You're in a series that matters a lot more. This is different. You got to consider your options and think about who has the better experience level and who's going to be in the position to be successful. I think McClanahan probably comes out. I think you got to put Sheriff back in that situation. So yeah, I would think you'll see Fleming and Sheriff show back up. That would be my theory, and that may come at the cost of Renfroe if it is Cleveland, or it'll come at the cost of somebody like Brett Phillips. Brett Phillips. I don't know why I keep mixing up his name. It probably would come at the cost of somebody like Phillips. Because it wouldn't be logical to not have Fleming on your roster in a longer series. So yeah, those would be the ones I would think.
Yeah, that's a great point about Fleming. That kind of escaped my mind, but you're right. Yeah, I don't think the option is there. I think they'd rather have maybe Snell in relief for like a Game 3 or Game 4 like he was last season. Yeah. So, yeah, it would be Fleming maybe, and then a little bit of Sliggers in Game 5, and then I think you're right. It would come at the cost of one of the outfielders, Phillips or Renfroe, depending on matchups. Seth, thank you again so much for another great call. Enjoy the Dodgers. I'm sure they're just going to crush the Brewers in this 3-game set, so you'll be able to enjoy that.
We'll see. Like, my confidence level in the Dodgers is, the Dodgers. Like, as a Dodgers fan who's got crippling PTSD from all of the horrible failures that we've had. So, yes, let's have a great game. Let's blow them out. Sure. Sounds like a plan.
Well, at least if maybe the Dodgers falter, it looks like you're maybe going to have the Rays perhaps to fall back on. So have a good one, Seth. Thanks again.
Absolutely. You too.
All right, and as always, Seth, thank you so much for the call. It was a good one. If we have anyone else listening that would like to call in, The number to call, 877-566-1020, with you for about 30 minutes or so. Just recently underway, Yankees at Indians. The Yankees up 1-0 in a best of 3. There was a rain delay, and now they're showing the trees blowing in the wind. It's looks like some rain blowing in the wind as well. It's Carlos Carrasco v. Masahiro Tanaka. The Indians already facing elimination after Shane Bieber got beat up pretty bad in Game 1. So, again, the significance of that is with the way the bracket, it's I guess, what do you call it, a stiff bracket or whatever. They're not reseeding it. It will be the winner of the Yankees-Indians guaranteed against the Rays in a best of 5 in San Diego. 5 games in 5 days, so a lot of interesting matchup stuff to talk about. Seth made an excellent point about Fleming because, you're not going to have a starter start more than one of those games. So I guess right now, the thing about Morton is tricky because with the ALDS starting on Monday, he probably wouldn't go Game 3 until Wednesday, and at that point it would have been, I think, nearly a week and a half since he last pitched, because he last pitched on last Friday against Philadelphia. So that would be perhaps, I guess, the only concern. But let's say the series goes 5 against either the Yankees or the Indians. It would be Snell in Game 1, Glasnow Game 2, Morton in Game 3, and Game 4, it's either Yarbrough or Yarbrough behind an opener, and I think if you get to a Game 5, it would probably just be a total smorgasbord, but Josh Fleming would be a guy that would give you maybe 2 or 3 innings. I'm sure maybe Snell or Glasnow would come in on short rest, depending on who's available and all the rest of that, so... and I think, they'd go more pitchers. I think he was right about McClanahan. This was the good chance to maybe get a look at him. It doesn't present itself, fine. You can reset the 28-man roster between every round. So I would imagine, if I had to guess right now with the roster, McClanahan and either Renfroe or Phillips comes out, and in comes Ryan Sheriff and Josh Fleming. So they'll add an extra pitcher and take out a position player because they have the influx in the outfield right now. I mean, essentially, they have 6 different guys that can play the outfield. Kiermaier, Margot, Brett Phillips, Hunter Renfroe, Randy Arozarena, and Yoshi Tsutsugo. Yoshi, I think, is going to be more of a DH type. Maybe, you just put him in the DH spot in the leadoff against righty starters. Can play third base. He improved over the course of the year. I don't like him in left field. It just seems like he doesn't move great out there. But you can play him in there. And so I think that versatility allows you, and even a guy like Brandon Lau can play the corner outfield. So definitely not a need for that many guys that can play outfield. So you can take one out, which would allow you to bring in a pitcher. And there's even stuff you can do at the infield if they want to make that move. But I think 14 or 15 pitchers would be more than enough to get through, and I guess thankful for the expanded 28 versus the regular 25-man roster that they would have gotten in a regular postseason. So, and getting back to Renfroe, just a point I was making before, an everyday player, he's probably in a 162 game season, he would probably be a 220 hitter and maybe hit 40 to 45 home runs. So. And as Seth said, he's just not even a good fit for this Rays lineup, even if he does, play a full season in a 162 game stretch. So I would imagine he'll get traded, but we celebrate him today, of course, as he was one of the more valuable players in the series, I suppose, because of just that grand slam meaning so much, and could give Glasnow a lead to work with, and that I think maybe helped him a little bit too, as he cruised pretty much through 6 innings. Basically, it was 2 pitches that got away from him, and both happened to be to the 9-hole hitter and catcher Danny Jansen. So I guess without further ado, we're going to tell you about tonight's, or this afternoon's, whatever you want to call it, Rays win. And I just wanted to say, I'm looking at the Yankees and Indians game. It's Masahiro Tanaka standing on the mound, and he is just, I mean, the rain is coming down pretty hard here in Cleveland, but I think with, there would be a total wrench thrown in the plan if they have to extend this thing, because I think they need to get set in the bubble for so many days if they're going to start the ALDS on time on Monday. So, I mean, it's raining. It's raining pretty hard, and we'll see how that game unfolds. The winner will play the Rays in a best of 5, but getting inning by inning. And just one more time, if you want to call in with you for maybe about another 30 minutes or so, the number is 877-566-1020. We'd love to have some more of you guys call in and talk about the Rays. It's a day of celebration, of course. the Lightning had their parade and everything. So maybe a City of Champions thing underway, and the Bucks, we'll talk about them over the next couple of days. They're in first place in the NFC South, and they got a game against the Chargers this week. But in the top of the first with Glasnow on, started off strong, struck out Kevon Biggio in 3 pitches. Biggio took 3 fastballs in the zone, so a guy that takes a lot of pitches but is very good at protecting with 2 strikes, just takes a 99-mile-an-hour fastball low and a bit in, and so that opens up the game, and then he gets Bichette to fly out and Gurriel to fly out. So that was good to see. And in that process, he threw only 7 pitches, and 6 of them were for strikes. So we had talked about him yesterday. It seems whether it's Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Charlie Morton, and even to an extent at times Ryan Yarbrough, it seems like the Rays starters always plagued with those 20-pitch first innings that kind of a bit derail, or I guess shorten is a better word, some of their outings. So Glasnow put his best foot forward in the first inning, and to be able to basically mess around and make the top of the order look silly, I think was a good thing to see, and definitely set the tone for the bottom of the first inning. And we'll go there now. Hyunjin Ryu, they didn't really show it on the TV broadcast, but Dave Wills on the radio call on WDAE had mentioned that Ryu just looked to be like very laboring through his warm up on the bullpen mound, and just just was having a rough go of it. I think he had a shoulder inflammation or something along those lines. His last start, I think, was a bit shortened, and he was on extra rest. So the Blue Jays, they set the series up specifically around him. They had him in Game 2 because the only way the Blue Jays were going to take this series was if they stole Game 1 and then had a gem from Ryu in Game 2. So they ended up getting neither of those things. And boy, I mean, Ryu basically blew up from the very beginning. We'll start off here. Mike Brasso on a 1-1 count. It was a cutter that actually, I mean, it was well inside to Brasso, but he turns on it and singles to deep left. But he tries to stretch it for 2 because it gets all the way back to the wall, but it was a screecher for sure. And who was it in left field? It was Lourdes Gurriel Jr. ends up throwing him out, so he gets the assist there. So instead of having a leadoff single, Brasso, I guess my initial reaction was I didn't like it because you have Arozarena, Brandon Lau, and Yandy Diaz coming up behind you. It's their job to, I mean, they're the better hitters in the lineup. So just get on first and let them do their job. But he tries to stretch for 2, and it doesn't end up working out, so he gets thrown out for the first out, but Ryu giving up a hit right off the bat. Then Arozarena on a 1-1 count. It was a changeup that was well outside, so I guess Ryu catching some tough breaks. I mean, pitches well outside the zone that hitters just make contact with, singles to get on with 1 out. Then Brandon Lau singles through the hole on the right side of the infield to make it first and third. It was a first pitch sinker that ran a bit into Lau. And then Yandy Diaz struck out swinging, worked a relatively good at-bat, took ball 1, and then it was a changeup on the outside part of the plate to Diaz, away from him, and he took it, but it was called a strike. It was really outside the zone, but it was a called strike. He fouls away a cutter, and then basically Ryu goes back to that same pitch. ESPN says it's a cutter, but could have been a changeup, who knows, but it was in that same part of the plate, and it was outside the zone again, but Diaz knew that he had to swing at it because of the expanded strike zone from the home plate ump, so ends up swinging and missing at really what is a ball there, so he strikes out. But then Manny Margot comes through. How valuable has he been? So really throughout this series, the home run in Game 1 and gets the scoring started in Game 2. And it was that pitch again, the changeup away from the righty. That's funny. A singles to right that scores a Arozarena and sends Brandon Lau to second base. That makes it 1-0. And then after that, it was Hunter Renfroe. He reaches base on error by the shortstop Bo Bichette, 1 of 2 that he would make on the evening, and that loads the bases for Willy Adames, who strikes out swinging. So they leave a lot of meat on the bone there for sure. Wasn't the last time that they would have the bases loaded though. So yeah, Adames strikes out swinging. So it was 1-0 after 1, which I I don't think is it right? I think it is. Yeah, my scorecard was a bit messed up. So top of the second we go. Glasnow still on, gets Guerrero Jr., Vladdy Jr. to strike out in a 7-pitch at-bat, then gets Grechik to strike out. Teoscar Hernandez singles off of him, then Travis Shaw singles, so it's first and third with 2 outs in a 1-0 game, and then gets Joe Panik to ground out on the first pitch. It was a fastball that caught a lot of the plate, kind of right through the middle, but Panik grounds out. And just an update here, they're putting the tarp down once again in Cleveland in the bottom of the first. The Indians have a 1-0 lead, but the rain is coming down really hard, and I think they really wanted to try to play through it, but just not able to. So we'll see how that unfolds. Maybe burning the starters too. That's a big storyline. Certainly Masahiro Tanaka and Carlos Carrasco, if they can't come back for their respective teams, that'll be a nice thing to have on. Bottom of the second, this is where the Rays really put on the hurt. Kevin Kiermaier, a leadoff single on just the second pitch of the at-bat. So we had kind of complained about his performance yesterday, not seeing enough pitches in the at-bats, and it really didn't change his approach. Again, singles off the second pitch. Then Mike Zunino, a big Z bomb, 391 feet to left, scores himself and Kiermaier in an 0-2 pitch. It was an 88-mile-an-hour fastball that just kind of ran a bit inside, but just was kind of hung to him. And obviously Ryu not having his best stuff here today. That makes it 3-0. And then you go back to the top of the order. Brasso strikes out. Arozarena doubles. Then Brandon Lau lines out for out number 2. Yandy Diaz works a walk. Margot reaches baseline error, the second of the day for Bo Bichette, which loads the bases. And then up comes Hunter Renfroe. And on the third pitch that he sees, it's a 1-1 pitch, an 85-mile-an-hour cutter that is just kind of up and in. 366 feet to left, gets it kind of well over the 162 landing over there down the left field line, and puts up 4 runs. The grand salami, only the second grand slam of the year for the Rays, and the first in postseason history. That really opens it up, gives them a touchdown lead. It was 7-0, and that effectively punched out Hyunjin Ryu. And it really did. He came out right after that. He gets through just an inning and 2/3. 7 total runs allowed, only 3 of them earned, which was a bit tricky, but that's because of the error, I guess, coming with the 2 outs. But Ross Stripling comes in, and Adames reaches base on an infield single, and then Kiermaier flies out. So it was 10 men coming to the plate in a busy inning that basically, I think, really just clinched the series right there in the second inning. Top of the third, Danny Jansen on the first pitch, a hung fastball, 432 feet to left, a home run to make it 7-1. And then the Blue Jays go back to the top of the order. Once again, it was Kevin Biggio striking out swinging. Then Bichette walks. Vladdy Jr. grounds out, which moves Bichette over to second, and Guerrero Jr. Grounds out to shortstop to end the inning. Bottom of the third, Ross Stripling still on one of their starters. Zunino strikes out. Brasso singles to center. Then Randy Arozarena, his second straight double, scores Brasso to make it 8-1. And in the third inning, that's the last score that the Rays would have. Brandon Lau grounds out to first, which moves Arozarena to third, and then Yandy grounds out in a 2-pitch at bat. So it was a changeup that was low, very low, and in, but he swings at it. So just kind of monitoring Diaz, looking forward to maybe what he'll do in the ALDS. Does work a couple of walks though, so that's the bright spot. Top of the fourth for Tyler Glasnow, Randall Grichuk, a leadoff single, and I think on almost every inning the Blue Jays had a leadoff man aboard, and the same thing here in the fourth. And then he gets to second base on a wild pitch. Teoscar Hernandez strikes out. Travis Shaw flies out, and Joe Panik grounds out. Bottom of the fourth, in comes Nate Pearson, the local product, I believe. He grew up not so far from Tropicana Field, and the Rays had yet to see him this year. He's going to be a big part of this Blue Jays team of the future, and he comes in and strikes out the side. Gets Margot, Renfroe, and Adames all down swinging and relatively easy. He touched 101 miles an hour was as fast as the fastball got, but consistently like 98, 99. And he's a starting pitcher. He's a starting pitcher, so came in relief here, but he's going to be a tough guy to face, no doubt for sure. So Not necessarily, I guess, a good thing for the Rays because they're going to have to see him a lot in the years moving forward, and I think the Rays got a sneak peek of what is to come from Pearson, top of the fifth. Glasnow still on, and then once again, Danny Jansen, a leadoff home run, goes 395 feet to left. It was another hung fastball, so when I mentioned earlier, it was just basically just two mistakes for Glasnow on the day over 6 innings, so they made it 8-2. And then Glasnow gets Biggio, Bichette, and Gurriel Jr. To end the inning. Bottom of the fifth, Nate Pearson still on, gets Kiermaier and Zunino. Choi in a pinch hit for Mike Brasso strikes out swinging. So that was, I believe, the first at bat that we have seen from him. No, we saw him last night. He went 0 for 1. So we see him again here, and in a 7-pitch at bat, the first of which, by the way, was a deep foul. It was just foul. It was almost a home run. So obviously that would have been one of the narratives if it had been a home run, but ends up striking out swinging against Nate Pearson in the at bat to end the inning. Top of the sixth, Choi goes to play first base, so it's a clean swap between him and Brasso, and he moves into the leadoff spot with Glasnow in his sixth and final inning. Vladdy Jr. singles, so again, another leadoff base runner. It was another hung fastball. So Glasnow, I think the one thing for him, and the fact that he could still get through 6 of just 2-run ball, the fact that the elevated fastball wasn't quite there, I think was a big thing, but he did have to work around a ton of leadoff base runners. Vladdy Jr. ends up getting to second on a wild pitch by Glasnow. That was the second of those. I think that's just what's going to happen on those deep curveballs. It was just one that was well outside the zone, but gets Grichuk to strike out, Hernandez to strike out, and Travis Shaw to strike out. So ends up getting 3 strikeouts in his sixth and final inning, and that's really the thing with Glasnow, more so than anyone else that I've seen. Gets better as the start goes on. He ends up finishing again 6 innings, 2 earned runs on 6 hits, walks a man, strikes out 8, 2 home runs, both to Danny Jansen, and again both fastballs that caught too much of the plate. 86 pitches, 55 were for strikes. Faced 25 batters and threw a first pitch strike to 19 of them. So he's going to be the game 2 starter in the best of 5, and really has been, I think, maybe the best starter this season. But it makes sense to have the former Cy Young winner and the great stuff that Snell has as kind of your game 1 guy. But want to talk about a 1-2 punch, man, that for sure you got it with Snell and Glasnow in a 3-game set. That's nearly impossible to beat, and the Blue Jays weren't able to do that. So bottom of the 6th, Anthony Bass on, and I want to mention this about Glasnow as well because I kind of forgot as we were going inning by inning. First inning for Glasnow, 7 pitches, 6 for strikes. In the second inning, 18 pitches, 12 for strikes. In the third inning, 18 pitches, 11 for strikes. In the fourth, 14 pitches, 8 of which were for strikes. In the fifth, 10 pitches, 7 strikes. And in his sixth and final inning, where he gets 3 strikeouts, 19 pitches, and 12 for strikes. So he had a 3 innings basically that were almost 20 pitches, but then the 7-pitch inning, the 14-pitch inning, and the 10-pitch inning allowed him to go 6, throwing just 86 pitches on the day. So that was huge, and if they needed him to, he probably could have gone through 7 very easily, but no need with the score the way that it was to have him do that. Kind of the opposite of game 1. Snell would have gone deeper than the 5 2/3 if it was a bigger lead, and here with Glasnow, he probably, if it was a closer game, might have gone a little bit deeper just because of how much he was tearing through the order. And looking here, he basically gets through the order 3 times through. The only guys that didn't see him a third time was Joe Panik and Daniel Jansen, which I guess maybe they didn't want him to face Jansen. Who knows? So got through the order fine at 3 times through, so maybe they didn't want him. He could have easily done this the 7th, to be honest, because he would have just had to face Panik, Jansen, and Kevin Biggio, who was 0 for 3 against him. And I want to talk about the key to the Rays' success, slowing down those guys. Kevin Biggio, which was, talk about fear factor. He's such a tough guy to face, one of the toughest outs, honestly, in the major leagues. And in this series, a combined, let's see, he goes 1 for 4 in game 1, and in game 2 he goes 0 for 4. So he goes 1 for 8. So that was a huge part of the Rays' success, to hold them just to 3 runs over the course of the 2-game set. So that was big. And then we resume back to inning by inning. Bottom of the 6th, Anthony Bass on, Arozarena walks, Brandon Lau strikes out. It was a strike him out, throw him out. Arozarena got a late break and was caught stealing second, and that's a note that I want to mention. They didn't have any stolen bases. They had only one. It was by Willie Adames in game 1. So the running Rays is what I was calling them, stealing bases like nobody's business. Maybe that was just a thing for Kevin Cash just to give teams something to game plan over nothing for. But I don't know if we'll see more of that or if it'll be more of what we saw over the last 2 days where they don't run as much. I don't think they sent very many runners at all. So after the strike him out, throw him out, double play, Yandy Diaz works a walk. He went from 1 and 2 and took 3 straight balls. They were well outside the zone, I think, but he ends up walking. Then Joey Wendell pinch runs, which I think just keeping Yandy Diaz's hamstring intact where you don't need him to stay in the game. And he's at third also, so you want that defensive replacement in Wendell playing third base, so that works out. Again, Diaz's day finishes as the following 0 for 2 with 2 walks and a strikeout. The strikeout was kind of bogus. Again, as I told you, he had to swing and miss at a pitch that wasn't in the zone just because of how it was being called. So make of that what you will. So Wendell runs for Diaz in the 6th, and then Margot grounds out to end the inning. Top of the 7th, Aaron Loop on again as Glasnow got through 6, and Loop gets the first couple of outs. Panic leadoff single. Then Jansen flies out, and then he gets Biggio to strike out, which was pretty big too. So gets, let's see, a couple of lefties there. He faced 2 lefties and got one of them out. So with 2 outs and a man on, up comes Ryan Thompson for his major league debut. One of many, I guess, on this Rays roster that are doing just that, and gets Bichette to ground out to end the inning. Bottom of the 7th. Thomas Hatch on, and it's a 1-2-3. Renfroe strikes out, Adames grounds out, and Kiermaier grounds out as well. Taking a look at Kiermaier, he sees just 3 pitches in the at-bat, so that's what you're going to get from Kiermaier. He's going to be aggressive and go at pitches early and count, so we'll see. He's going to be pretty much an everyday player because of what he gives you over there in center field. Top of the 8th, Ryan Thompson ends up staying on and gets a 1-2-3 inning, gets Lourdes Gurriel Jr. to ground out, strikes out Vladdy Jr., and also strikes out Randall Grichuk. So really good postseason debut again for him. Goes an inning and a third, giving up no hits, no walks, and striking out a pair. 16 pitches, 11 for strikes, so awfully efficient because he obviously could have gone in Game 3 if they needed him to. Bottom of the 8th, Rafael Dolis comes on. Mike Zunino leadoff single, and then Choi grounds into a double play, but it was a hard hit ball just right into the shift on a 2-2 count, so he saw some pitches. It was a sinker that was middle, and Choi, it would have been a base hit if it was not for the shift there, but it was a double play, and then Randy Arozarena pops out to end the inning, and that was the last of the offense that we will see until Monday. And then in the top of the 9th, Nick Anderson, who threw 29 pitches in Game 1. We thought we wouldn't see him the remainder of the series. Ends up coming on here, gets an inning clean, no stat line basically, no hits, no walks, no strikeouts, and most importantly, no runs. Gets 3 outs using just only 6 pitches. Gets Teoscar Hernandez to ground out on the second pitch, Travis Shaw flat out on the second pitch, and Joe Panic grounded out on the second pitch as well. So very good for Nick Anderson there. Anytime you get a 6-pitch ninth, you obviously did your job, and then Nick Anderson closes out the first. I guess I won't count it, but the record book will show it that it was the Rays' first postseason series victory since the American League Championship Series against Boston in 2008. So I'm sure we'll hopefully, if they win the ALDS, it'll be more official in my eyes, but basically the first postseason series victory in, at this point, what is basically 12 years. So pretty cool for sure. Obviously, last year they had a pretty good chance. They ended up coming back down 0-2 to force Game 5 against Houston, and I say Houston cheated. They say that Glasnow was tipping pitches, and Glasnow was, but who knows kind of what was going on with the Astros in that series. But either way, the Rays come back with a vengeance, and I guess we'll talk about it after the break, but Houston ended up winning, sweeping the Twins, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So final takeaways for the Rays. Great to see Glasnow do as good as he did. I would say established the fastball, not as much. He established the strikes early in counts, which was important, something that a guy like Blake Snell struggles with. And then, he does fine, gives up a couple of pitches to Danny Jansen, so what? Gives up 2 earned runs over 6. And then the bullpen did its job. Aaron Loop, which has been pretty good lately, he gets a couple of outs there. And then Ryan Thompson was very impressive. He's also, I think, 0 for 10 as far as inherited base runners that come across to score, so he's lights out. And I think he's going to be their go-to guy. If a reliever, like maybe let's say Oliver Drake, allows a couple of base runners, if Nick Anderson is not available or you don't want to use him in that spot, I think Ryan Thompson is basically the 1B to that type of situation. And then the former Lee mentioned Nick Anderson, not expected to see him, didn't like the move, but I think in some ways it's good because he needs to get used to pitching on back-to-backs, especially if he pitches multiple innings, in which he did yesterday, throwing 29 pitches. So I guess the 6-pitch night there, and that's all fine and good for the offense. Brasso did good, got thrown out at the beginning, but ends up getting a couple of hits, 2 for 3, gets subbed out for Choi. Choi goes 0 for 2, but almost had a home run in the first at-bat and should have had a base hit in the second at-bat. So stat line doesn't necessarily reflect it, and that's where the value in watching the game certainly comes into play. I think he's going to do some major damage, and obviously he'll be the first baseman starting against righty starters, so that'll come into play big, either really against the Indians or the Yankees. Randy Arozarena, I'll give him the American League Wild Card Series MVP, as he goes 3 for 4 with a walk, so reaches base basically 4 times in 5 plate appearances, and had the great game 1 with the triple, and saved a double defensively. Brandon Lau gets a couple of hits in the series, goes 1 for 4 once again. Get to see a little more of Yandy Diaz, and really he's the same player he was when we last saw him a month ago. So that's all fine and great. I don't have an issue with that. I think he's going to come into play big as maybe your third baseman type. If you don't want Brasso over there, Brasso is better defensively, as is Wendell, but Diaz will probably be an outright starter and a guy that could hit leadoff or clean up or wherever you need him. Margot gets another hit today, and he played a pretty good left field, I'd say. Renfroe, obviously, we know with the grand slam, but who knows how much we'll see of him. And then Damas gets hit, strikes out a couple times. He bats 7th, which I like him in that spot. You got to have him at shortstop. He's an electrifying defender, so you kind of get over maybe when he has a bad day offensively, but he does get a hit, and that came in the second inning, so that was good to see, and that I believe that was like right before the inning ended, by the way, but did get the hit. And then Kiermaier didn't get a chance to do much defensively. He gets a hit here today after going 0 for 3 in Game 1. I don't love his approach. He's just going to swing at everything early in counts and try and make contact. So be it. I would rather see him try and work walks because of how deadly he is on the base path, and pitchers seem to get distracted with that. But he wants to do this, so we'll see how that works out. And Big Z, Mike Zunino, gets a couple of hits. The 2-run homer, which was awesome to see, does strike out a couple of times. Most of his at-bats are relatively non-competitive, but I think with Zunino, it's funny that I mentioned this yesterday. He can run into a bad fastball as good as anybody. Just low 90-mile-an-hour fastball that catches a lot of the plate. He'll run into it and remind you that he's a quote-unquote power threat. So, and I said that's going to come into play in the postseason. It was an 88-mile-an-hour fastball that was middle into the righty. So, but he takes advantage of it, and that gave him a 3-0 lead at that point. So, who knows? So that's all good to see. And then Game 1, guys that we didn't see here today, Yoshi goes 0 for 2 with a strikeout, and then really just the regular cast of characters. So really look forward to seeing what this team is going to be able to do going into the bubble on the West Coast. It works out for them that they're going to be able to stay in Petco for the ALDS, and then if they advance to the American League Championship Series against either the Astros or Athletics or White Sox. So that's where the postseason lies right now. At 8:27, we're going to take a break, give you the baseball scores. When we come back, we are going to talk a little bit, I guess, Major League Baseball. We'll save the Bucks for tomorrow, because we will be on the air tomorrow to get that out of the way, because I don't think we will be on Friday. So get all that stuff out of the way, and then I won't mention it more, but again, congrats to the Lightning on winning the Stanley Cup. That's huge, as you know, we're a Tampa Bay show, so that's all fine and great. If we have anybody still listening, you want to call in, you want to talk Rays, you want to discuss maybe how you want the postseason roster to look for the ALDS, that's fine. The tarp is coming off once again in Cleveland, so that game will be getting underway here shortly. At 8:27, we're going to take a short break, but here are today's baseball scores. HBC. A big day for postseason baseball. A total of 8 games that will be taking place here today. The first of which, as we know, the Rays 8-2 over the Blue Jays. In Oakland, the Athletics tie up the best of 3, one game apiece with a 5-3 win over the Chicago White Sox. The A's got to starter Dallas Keuchel there early. Also in Chicagoland, the Marlins 5-1 over the Cubs. Sandy Alcantara getting the win there. They're up 1-0. The Astros in Minnesota win 3-1 over the Twins. The Twins have now lost 18 straight postseason games as they are eliminated there in Minnesota, so Houston will advance. In 13 innings, it's the Braves 1-0 over the Reds. At the bottom of the first, a couple of rain delays. The Indians 1-0 over the Yankees. And in the bottom of the 8th, it's the Cardinals in Game 1 up 6-4 over the Padres. We'll be right back.
Hey, sports fans. William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBC Stream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, when all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCstream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 636. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 8:30, man, that's early. We are back on the William Haynes Show. I guess thanks to MLB for scheduling the Rays at 5 o'clock yesterday and 4 o'clock here today. So we get an early jump here on what is typically William Haynes After Dark here on the William Haynes Show. The final segment of today's program, the number to call, and we'll still be taking your phone calls at 877-566-1020. With the last part of the show, I just wanted to talk about some of the other teams in the playoffs. You know, obviously we talk a lot about baseball, so just wanted to catch up on some things that are going around to Major League Baseball. I don't think there's ever been 8 playoff games in a day. I mean, that's bizarre, but I guess the only bright spot of the season is we do get to see this much playoff baseball. These best of threes, while quite wonky, are going to be pretty fun. So the only game that is not yet underway at 10 p.m. Eastern is the Dodgers and Brewers. The Brewers finished 2 games under 500, rather, at 29-31. And the Dodgers at 43-17 are very large favorites. The Dodgers tonight, at least, are minus 250. Walker Buehler against Brent Sutter. I'd imagine the Dodgers would probably have Clayton Kershaw in Game 2, and I can't think of his name, but I know the Brewers, like their number 1 starter that was a Cy Young candidate, went down. So I think any chance for them in this series is pretty much down the drain. Look at their lineup. They got Yelich leading off, then Ryan Braun batting second. Vogelbach, I kind of forgot he was with them, is the DH cleaning up. Avi Garcia is in there, as is Eric Sogard. So that's going to be kind of a fun game to watch. And then obviously for the Dodgers, they've got everybody. Betts, Seager, Turner, Muncy, Bellinger. Why is Bellinger batting 6th? That is bizarre, but I guess so is this season. I guess Bellinger's batting .239 on the year, so 30 RBIs, 12 home runs. So I don't know. Maybe Bellinger had a bit of an off season. Who knows? But that's getting underway at 10. One of the two games currently in action in the bottom of the 8th. It's the Cardinals 6-4 over the Padres in San Diego. The Petco Park where the Rays will be playing starting on Monday, a best of 5. So that'll be a Monday through Friday set. So that's interesting for them. For the Cards, they don't go with Adam Wainwright in Game 1. Instead, they go Kwang Hyun Kim. And Kim, it gave him 3 2/3, 3 runs. And then for the Padres, Chris Paddock, who I know Padres fans are kind of furious with, 2 1/3, 6 runs on 8 hits. That's all they give him. They have to go to the pen early. Emilio Pagan pitched a scoreless inning, gave up a couple of walks and a hit, so he might have had the bases juiced there and got out of it. So there's a former Ray watch. And then looking, Tommy Pham has a couple of hits. Fernando Tatis is leading off. He's got a hit. Machado has got a hit. And then for the Cardinals, not a whole lot going on for them. Paul Goldschmidt, I know, has a home run. That's his one hit of the game. It's gone back and forth a little bit. The Padres have come back. They were down 6-2, so it's now 6-4 in the late stages. And then going on to the games that were final. An interesting one I had my eye on. It started at noon, but was well into the start of the Rays game. It was the Braves 1-0 over the Reds in Game 1. And starting pitcher duel, Max Fried gave him 7 scoreless. Trevor Bauer gave the Reds 7 2/3 scoreless. And Trevor Bauer, a really fun guy. He's been vlogging this season, so I can't wait to see his video for this game. And he's a guy that has... he's a guy, if you're not familiar, super into metrics and things like that, measuring different stats with his body, and he's found out that he's actually better on 3 days rest than 4, and he wants to actually do that in the regular season, and I don't know if that would work out in a 162 game season, because those guys' arms already are pretty stressed, but he wants to do that. But obviously in the postseason, he's going to get the chance. And it's a shame that the Reds, I was kind of rooting for them just because they're so interesting. When you have a starting 3 of Trevor Bauer, Luis Castillo, and Sonny Gray, how do you lose a best of 3, especially with the offensive pieces they have? I mean, they've got Castellanos, who goes 3 for 6. Joey Votto, we know. Eduardo Suarez, who was, I think, at the top of he was second in the National League with home runs because, of course, Pete Alonso was first. But Suarez, a guy that was up there in that category. They've got Moustakas. Aquino had a bit of a rough game, I saw. I mean, they've got a lot of guys offensively, and they through 13, they don't score any runs. They go... You think the Rays are bad. They go 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position and leave 13 men on base. Oh my goodness, they deserve to lose that series if they can't scratch out a run with all that. And then the Braves don't do much better. 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position and 9 left on base. So the Reds have Castillo on the docket tomorrow and Sonny Gray in Game 3. The Braves, I know, have Ian Anderson, who has looked pretty good. And then trying to look for Game 3, they've got Kyle Wright. So I think that's their only 3 decent starters, because we know Foltynewicz went down or was DFA'd after a rough start against the Rays, and then Mike Soroka with a torn calf, I think it was. So tough break for the Braves, but who knows? They win this series, they're going to go to I guess either Arlington or Houston. So they take Game 1 against Cincinnati. We'll see. Game 2 is tomorrow. And then this one is interesting. The Astros 3-1 over the Twins. Houston wins the series 2-0. The Twins now have lost 18 consecutive postseason games. Obviously a record in the North American sports, more than any NBA, NFL. The previous record, I think, was the NHL's Chicago Blackhawks, who had won, I guess, what would have been 16 straight, something along those lines, I think, in the late 70s. So, tough break for the Twins. Josh Donaldson, who they gave all that money for, was injured, and He's not even on the roster, and now he won't even play in a postseason game. Rocco Baldelli, the former Ray, he's the manager of the Twins. Tough break for them. I mean, Nelson Cruz, I know, gave him a big hit, and they had a guy throwing at home on that play, and that's the only offense they had. I know they had only one run in game one, and I mean, you look, the Twins 36-24. The Astros were 2 games under 500 at 29-31, and the Astros, of course, take this series 2-0. Jose Urquidy gives them 4 1/3 of a run. For the Twins, it was Jose Barrios for 5 innings rather of 1-run ball. It was for the Astros, the typical cast of characters. Springer and Altuve both go 0 for 4. Brantley 0 for 2 with a couple of walks. Bregman 1 for 3. It's the same lineup. I mean, and you look towards the bottom, Gurriel, Correa, Josh Reddick. I'm getting kind of flashbacks to the ALDS last year, from being totally honest. The last thing I like seeing is those 9 names listed in that order. I don't like to read that. And then for the Twins, I mentioned pretty much just Nelson Cruz. And man, a renaissance season that he's had at age 40 here. It was big. He's had 16 home runs in a 60-game season, and who knows what he would have done in a 162-game year. But the Twins are done. They don't get past the wild card set in Minnesota, so it's such a shame for them. And obviously, we don't like to see the Astros advance, and who knows if they'll face the Rays, it'll be in a best of 7, and without Garrett Cole and Verlander this time. So, I would probably give the Rays the edge in that one, but who knows what the Astros are going to be capable of. They'll play in a best of 5 against the winner of the White Sox and Athletics, and we'll head there now. That series is now tied 1 game apiece, and as Chicago took game 1, Lucas Giolito had the no perfect game through 6. He ends up giving him 7, and then here today, the Athletics tie the series with a 5-3 win. For the Sox, it was Dallas Keuchel going only 3 1/3 of 3 runs, 5 total unearned. And then for the Athletics, Chris Bassett, 7 innings of just 1-run ball. That was huge for them. Liam Hendricks, the closer, goes an inning and 2/3, throwing 49 pitches. So that obviously is going to put him out of play for Game 3. So I guess maybe give the White Sox the edge there, and then Diekman gets the save, just getting an out there. So, and then offensively, I don't know. The Athletics lineup without Matt Chapman looks a lot different, and their whole team as a whole. Pinder has taken over, I guess, at third base. Chad Pinder. So I don't know what they're going to look like. I would imagine the Sox would probably take Game 3 tomorrow. We'll see. Starting pitching, it'll be neither of them have been announced. So that'll be interesting to see who they throw out there. White Sox, a ton of fun. I mean, they've got guys, Tim Anderson, Yoan Moncada, Grandal. They have probably a guy that's contending for the American League MVP in Jose Abreu. I know he made an out in a big spot. And also the young phenom, Luis Robert. They've got all kinds of guys, and I obviously wouldn't want to see them. We know the last time the Rays saw them, it was in 2008, the first postseason series ever for the Rays, and they ended up winning that one. So, I don't know, an interesting rematch potential there. And then, obviously, you like how the Rays match up against the Athletics. So that series is tied at 1, and we'll see a Game 3 tomorrow. We know about that was it, I guess, for today. No, we have one more. Marlins 5-1 over the Cubs. The Marlins up 1-0 right now in Wrigleyville. We'll see if that series goes the distance. I know that Starling Marte broke his hand. He goes 2 for 4, and so obviously he's going to miss the rest of the year, and he's a big piece. They picked him up at the deadline from Arizona, and I think he was the guy that put him over the top and allowed them to get the second place, I believe, in the National League East, and brought him to October for the first time since, I don't know, I think they said it was, 13 or 14 years, but they've got guys. Corey Dickerson gets a hit. Starling Marte, who's now out of it, gets 2 hits. Jesus Aguilar, former Ray, 2 hits, 2 runs knocked in. So that came on a home run in the 7th inning to make it 5-1. And then starting pitcher, Sandy Alcantara goes 6 2/3, a 1-run ball, and the bullpen goes the rest of the way. And then Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs goes 6 1/3 of 3 runs, and then Jeffress, I know a guy that Cubs fans don't like out of the bullpen, gave up a couple of runs as well. So Bad vibes for the Cubs. I mean, their playoff window is slamming shut right in front of their eyes against an upstart Marlins team who has never lost a postseason series in 2 trips to October baseball. So that'll be interesting to keep our eye on. I think first series back there since the Steve Bartman incident, so all kinds of weird vibes going on there. So Marlins take game 1, and that was it outside for the Rays game that, of course, we spent the most time talking about. And then currently just an update. In the bottom of the first, it's the Indians up 1-0. It was a short delay, so Masahiro Tanaka and I guess Carlos Carrasco will be able to continue the game. So that'll be interesting to keep our eyes on. If Indians win, force game 3, and then if the Yankees win this game, they will advance to a best-of-5 starting on Monday against the Rays. Looking at other games tomorrow, as the Rays will be off, it's October 1, so official October baseball, I suppose. It'll be at noon, Reds and Braves, Luis Castillo versus Ian Anderson. A win would clinch it for the Braves. At 2 p.m., Marlins and Cubs, Sixto Sanchez versus Yu Darvish. Wow, I'm surprised that the Cubs didn't throw out Yu Darvish in game 1. So I totally forgot that, a National League Cy Young contender is going to be starting on the mound for the Cubs. So that game is definitely, I would say, going 3 unless the bullpen blows it, which is not out of conversation for sure. At 3 p.m., it's the White Sox and Athletics, game 3, yeah. Neither starter has been announced. At 5 p.m., Cardinals and Padres, game 2. That game is still game 1 is still in action, but it'll be Adam Wainwright v. Zach Davies. You got to think the Cardinals, especially still leading game 1. Yeah, top of the ninth, 6-4 Cards. Probably St. Louis is going to advance, and Mike Clevenger, who I don't think is going to be able to go. That's a tough break for the Padres. They went all in at the deadline with all kinds of guys. At 7 p.m., if there is a Game 3, Yankees-Indians, Zach Plesac for the Indians, undecided for New York. I would imagine it would probably be, they've got Jordan Montgomery, they've got Jay Happ, I believe. They've got a youngster who I can't think of the name of, but I got to check it out now that I forgot. It was a youngster, and I know he had played for them a little bit down the stretch. It was, Devi Garcia. He did make the postseason roster, so we'll see if that ends up happening. And at 10 p.m., Brewers and Dodgers game 2, Brandon Woodruff v. Clayton Kershaw. So that'll be fun. I'll be on the air tomorrow. Let's call it 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be on the air. If you want to talk Rays baseball, we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking Buccaneers. We have yet to recap their win over the Broncos. We have another game to recap on Sunday against the Chargers and make the rest of the NFL picks because we'll be off Friday. And then we won't be back until, I guess, Monday night or Monday afternoon recapping game 1 for the Rays. So good, exciting things on the deck upcoming for the show. As we know, the Lightning have brought home the cup. The first of the Triple Crown, I suppose, because we don't have a basketball team. But the Miami Heat, I guess, we'll claim the Heat. The game 1 in the NBA Finals, I think, is either tonight or tomorrow against the Lakers and LeBron James. So, the COVID really took down the world for a little bit, but we got a really nice bunch here in this kind of fall season for sports. It's going to be a lot of fun. And again, tomorrow we'll talk baseball, a little bit Rays, a lot more Bucks. Keep an eye on this Indians-Yankees game. Do a little bit of scouting. It'll all be good. We'll see you tomorrow night at 9.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.
W